Hello and welcome. My name is Johannes Fislinger. I'm the founder of Mental Health University, and welcome back to part number 2 of our Mental Health 3-part video series. In this segment, I'd like to focus on the three main components or keys that form mental health. They have transformed my life and thousands of people that I know of. So, before we get started, I'd really like to thank you for all your wonderful feedback that we received about the first segment. Really appreciate that. And what I'd like you to do is post your comments and your questions at our Facebook page. First of all, like our Facebook page if you are not there yet, if you haven't liked it yet. You can comment. You can also ask questions, specific questions that you'd like to be answered, because we have weekly podcasts, we have articles that we publish, we have webinars that gonna come up pretty much on a monthly basis, and we want to hear from you what you're interested in, what you'd like to learn about, certain health issues. We just had a cancer webinar a couple of weeks ago, which was very, very well received, and anything you'd like to know, we'd like to share with you. We'd like to provide as much valuable information, content for you so you can integrate mental health. We have such a passion for this art and science of self-healing, and we are here for you. And so please share with us and post on the Facebook page, or obviously you can also send us an email. So the big question that I'd like to ask is, what have you learned from the last segment, from the last video series, right? Well, one of the things that we discussed was about our or your health beliefs. What we believe to be true about health determines how healthy we are, how we interpret symptoms, and what kind of actions we take. So for many of us, it's absolutely essential to update our health beliefs and kind of really look into, is it still applicable for our current situation? Or are there health beliefs we can adopt that are much more empowering, that are much more encouraging and help us to really live a healthy and a more fulfilled life? The second part that we discussed was about the choices that you have. You have a tremendous amount of choices in terms of healthcare. And as we just said, what you believe to be true about health, your health beliefs determine if you take antibiotics if you have a little infection, if you take natural medicine medications, or use any other form of treatment or modality that is available, and we have so many wonderful ones. Or are you into prevention? Are you actually trying to live a healthy lifestyle to strengthen your immune system, your body mind functions, and really prevent major health issues to happen in the first place? Or are you ready to really dive even deeper than that into mental health and the art and science of self-healing, knowing what's triggering your health issues, becoming aware which emotions affect you, becoming aware which beliefs and thought patterns might be affecting your symptoms, and then based on that inner knowing, taking conscious actions and living every moment consciously, being aware of our body, our mind, and our social environment, and live consciously and choose the way we want to live. So in this video series, as I mentioned in this part 2, we'd like to dive into the three main keys that make up mental health. But before we do that, I'd like to address one issue, that mental health is much more biology than psychology, for example. That mental health is based on the biology, on our body's evolution over millions and millions of years, where we evolved and we're still evolving as a species. And these unconscious programs are still or are deeply embedded in our unconscious or subconscious mind. So when we talk about mental health, we talk about this deep connection between our biology and evolution. The evolution of us as human beings, as a society, as a species, and that is obviously directly linked to our brain, right? Because we know our brain is, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant if you really study the brain, right? 100 billions of neurons. We have more connections in our brain than there's stars in the universe. And most important, our brain uses 25% of our body's energy. Just think about that. 25% of the energy that we take into our body goes to our brain. So it just shows how absolutely important our brain is. And our brain is 60% fat, right? So there is a connection between our brain and everything that happens in our environment and in our body. And from an evolutionary point of view, there is a connection, a specific connection between organs, specific organ tissue actually, our brain, or a specific brain relay, which means different parts in our brain are very intricately linked to specific organs and organ tissue, organ function, and specific mind functions, specific themes, specific functions in our body. So this synchronous organ, brain, mind connection, we take that literally. We've seen that every day on ourselves and our client that you can't separate the three. So whenever we talk, for example, in mental health about the mind or we talk about the organ, it's just linguistically a way to express ourselves. But it's important to know that there's always a direct link. There's not just a body-mind connection, right? That we all know about by now. That's proven so many times. But it goes much deeper. There's actually a specific organ, mind, brain connection. So we cannot separate the three. They're totally linked with each other. And so when we talk about mental health or the art and science of self-healing, we have to look at the interconnectedness of our whole system. And it's just absolutely brilliant how interconnected our body-mind is. And one of the most important learning lessons, the most important health beliefs that we can adopt by far is trusting our body's healing intelligence. Now it sounds so simple, right? It sounds like, yeah, it makes sense. Our body is absolutely intelligent. We cut ourselves and our body just heals naturally. We know that, right? We know that that's a natural process. But do we know the same thing about other issues that we might face, about back pain, about low blood sugar, about high cholesterol, about cancer, tumor growth, about our um, indigestion, Crohn's disease, and many or basically all health issues? Are there, is that our body's way to express itself? Is there intelligence behind it? Is there actually a form of self-healing? Is this a form of self-healing? Well, in mental health, we got to know and understand that all symptoms we have, they are meaningful. Meaningful in that sense means it's an intelligent reaction of our body. It's not there randomly. Every symptom is there because our body, mind, brain goes through an intelligent and meaningful process of self-healing. Because our body is a self-healing machine, and even science knows that. By now, there's a lot of research that shows that this constant ability of our body to heal itself is absolutely amazing if we let it happen. And how much abuse our body can take is just stunning. We might abuse our body mind for 10, 20, 30 years, and our body mind still keeps going. It does its best to regenerate itself. but obviously there's just so much a body-mind can do. But one of the things that really changed my perspective of who I am, of my body, of the symptoms that I have, knowing is knowing that this auto-regulation, you might call it self-healing, but more the technical term is auto-regulation, which means our body constantly automatically is trying to regulate itself or the different systems in our body. So this auto-regulation is a primary biological force. Think about that for a second. How would you react differently? How would you think and feel differently if you totally knew inside that your body is your absolute friend, that your body is a self-healing machine, your body is constantly trying to auto-regulate you, your emotions, your thoughts, and your social environment? That there's this direct interconnectedness, and your body is actually there to help you live more consciously, live a better life, help you on the way, and not be against you. Think about that for a second. So the deepest key to self-healing is trusting our body's healing intelligence. Now, I want to say one thing very clearly. This does not mean doing nothing. It's the opposite. Let me say that again. Just because we deep down trust our body's healing intelligence doesn't mean we don't do anything. It's the opposite. We do everything possible to help our body in that self-healing process. But what that means is we have a deep trust inside of ourselves. Because remember, about 70, 80, even 90% of our bodily functions are unconscious anyways. It's nothing we need to do consciously. So that alone proves that there is an incredible intelligence within us that knows exactly what to do, and part of that is connecting with that healing intelligence where intuitively we know what steps we have to take to actually heal. If that is what we wish, if we're conscious about it and make a clear inner decision that yes, I will do everything necessary to heal myself. So trusting in our bodies or in your body's healing intelligence gives you the trust, gives you the right, and gives you the freedom to do what is needed to heal yourself. It's a commitment at the same time. The second very important key is that there's not just a body-mind connection or a mind-body connection, but there is a much deeper body-mind social connection that we cannot separate us, which is our body, our physical being, and on our mind, which is our emotions, our thoughts, and intuitions, and so on. Body-mind, we cannot separate body-mind from our social environment. And that is also very deep because we used to just look at the body, we used to just look at the mind, and now we looked at the body-mind interconnection, but we're missing the most important aspect, that we are embedded in an environment, not just a physical environment, but a social environment, and that influences or is connected as much to our health than our emotions do, or our thoughts. So just consider this. If there is this body-mind social connection, you would pay much more attention to your social surroundings, right? Knowing that it totally determines how healthy you are, how vibrant you are, how successful you are. So there's a direct interconnectedness between our organs, not just the body, but specific organs, and our mind, and the social environment, where social again is the people we hang out with, the friends we have, the family situation, the quality of our environment. Do we live in a toxic environment or in a very natural, beautiful environment? So all the things that come to us from the outside fall really under this social aspect. But actually there is even more than that, because if you look again beyond, as I think I said that at the very beginning, that mental health is about the big picture, right? Where we first want to look at the interconnectedness of us human beings, as me and you, embedded into the social environment. That's the big picture. But if you look closer, and an important aspect of mental health is this being very, very specific, very specific. And if we are specific, then we start to realize that actually every symptom, like a back pain, or like a skin eczema, or my vision, my hearing, or indigestion, or a stomach pain, or itchiness that we have, or heart disease, that a specific symptom is connected with a very specific organ tissue. It's not just random, right? It's a very specific connection. And that again, specific emotions, stress triggers, and beliefs and social situations again connect with very specific organ tissue and symptoms. So life in our body is not random. I mean, that's the key message here. That our body is incredibly intelligent. So if we, for example, experience a certain anger, maybe an anger about fighting with someone, this is not just affecting any type of organ tissue, but only the organ tissue that we associate that anger with. For example, the gallbladder, liver gallbladder, right? Even in Chinese medicine, this is known that anger is very closely connected with the gallbladder, with the liver. Fear, for example, the lungs, the bronchial mucosa, right? It's not just the lungs, but it's the specific tissue inside the lungs. The organ tissue, which we call bronchial mucosa, that very often is connected with deep fear. For example, fear somebody invading your space, fear about somebody that you might have to fight very soon, in business, in a relationship, whatever that might be. So this is the social aspect, where specific conflict situations that we experience that are very dramatic and unexpected for us, they trigger us into stress. And that is when we experience symptoms at that point. So there is this direct link and connection between symptoms, organ tissue, emotions, stress triggers, beliefs, social situations, and obviously our lifestyle, which includes diet, exercise, and so on, and specific life goals that we have or not have. So going beyond the body-mind connection is absolutely essential, because for us personally, just to realize, to become aware of who we are, this is a big step forward, and especially for all types of health professionals. Just imagine, I mean, if a client comes to you and has a symptom, and just by asking a couple questions, a few questions, you know what the organ tissue is that is affected, you know what the emotion is, you know their life situation, the triggers they experience, you know even what they think, you know what lifestyle situations they're confronted with, or social situations. So it just totally transforms our analysis, our diagnosis, and we move towards a truly holistic diagnosis that I believe needs to be the basis for a new healthcare system, an integrative, meta-health based knowledge or foundation for all types of health professionals. Now, let's go to the third key, which is, to me, absolutely essential, because for most of us, we say, well, we have back pain, we have an inflammation, we have a virus infection, and it seems like it's a bam, you get a stamp, that's the diagnosis, right? It seems to be frozen in time, but the reality is that our body is very, very dynamic, that there are actually very specific points and phases of self-healing. So if you experience a symptom, try and maybe just imagine that for a second. Try to look at it as it's just a symptom of something much more complex in our body-mind, or in our body-mind social system. The symptom is just the feedback. It's a red lamp turning on, right? In a car, it turns on, oh, gas is almost out. Well, we better do something. Uh, that's what we should do, right? But often we just go over it and just put some medication on, do some symptom treatment, and don't even look at the deeper meaning of symptoms. But the specifics of knowing what and how our body heals itself is absolutely amazing and life transforming. And at this point, we want to look just at the five major points of phases. There's more points and phases, but we just look now at the five major points and phases, which we found that, and this symbol might reflect the yin yang, right? Which is actually somewhat close, where we have different cycles and different, the flow of life is represented by this plus minus yin yang day night rhythm. And the same thing happens in our body, or actually in very specific organ tissue. So if we have a back pain, for example, that I had when I was younger, I had no clue about all this at that time. But now looking back, it just totally follows this pattern that sometimes my back pain was very, very, very strong, and then slowly it got better, and then even it was pretty much gone all the way. Maybe it was just as 20%, right, 10. And I said, wow, that's good, but then bam, it just came back. And I had no clue that it was actually going through a cycle of stress repair, stress regeneration, stress regeneration. This is the core principle of self-healing, that every single organ tissue goes through very specific symptoms through these five major points of healing. So for example, guess, when will you feel the back pain? If we consider there is something that triggers us into stress, right? We feel totally stressed with all the symptoms of stress hormones, we think about a problem a lot, we just can't sleep, we have little appetite, and so on. That's the stress phase. And something that triggers the regeneration, and when we fall into regeneration, our body recuperates and tries to repair itself. So guess for a second, if you don't know already yet, if you study mental health, I'm sure you know, which of the two phases actually the pain appears, the back pain, the one I had, and many of you have, and millions of people have different types of pains in their body. Well, most of us might think, well, we have more stress, more pain, but in this case, it's actually not. With this organ tissue, with the bones and the muscular system, it's actually not the case. Actually, let's go to this example, which is a chronic shoulder pain, right? The pain actually appears right after a regeneration trigger when we go into regeneration. We feel tired, exhausted, and then the pain appears. And the pain actually, from mental health perspective, is part of that process of regeneration, as long as it's not chronic. Now, if it's chronic pain, which means we just go through stress repair on an ongoing basis. But even if you have chronic health issues, just think about it for a second. They're not always the same, the symptoms, right? They shift. Now, the shift of your symptoms from being less intense to being very intense, it totally goes away. That is part of that flow of self-healing, that cycle of self-healing. And so what I'd like you to do is, in this segment, first of all, become aware of that there are specific emotions, specific stresses, even specific thoughts that influence your organ health, influence specific symptoms. And second, become aware of the flow, the cycle of self-healing. Well, at what time are your symptoms less intense? When you wake up in the morning, are the symptoms stronger? Regeneration phase. When actually during the day, or when you are stressed or you're very active, the symptoms go away. You are in the stress phase. So it's an absolute logical, actually biological process that is happening in our system. And once we decoding it, everything makes, first of all, so much sense. We start to feel, and we feel the trust in our body and our body mind. and we start to really hear what we need to say. We kind of, intuition comes up where we totally realize what the next steps are in our self-healing process. Now, another quick example, if you have a strong chronic stomach pain, an ulcer. Now, the ulcer, interesting enough, grows under stress, which we know in traditional medicine, right? Stomach ulcer is usually very much connected with stress, but what specific stress? What specific emotion is attached to it? What's the thoughts that I have on an ongoing basis? Whenever I'm in stress, I'm thinking about something that puts me or keeps me in that stress phase. What's the social situation? So go beyond just a physical symptom. Intuitively feel what the symptom is telling you, and you will be amazed how your life will change. Well, you might ask yourself, well, where is this mental health coming from? And all I can say is that over the last 10, 15 years, thousands of mental health professionals, doctors, surgeons, GPs, naturopaths, psychologists, biologists, energy psychology practitioners, yoga teachers, energy healers, health coaches, consultants, you know, all types of health professionals are working with mental health on a daily basis. And so we gathered a lot of basic wisdom and knowledge that we teaching because we feel it's just absolutely life transforming, not just for us individually, but especially if you are working in a health profession. And obviously, you just go to the metahealthuniversity.com website. You see a lot of the testimonials that, just a small selection of testimonials from our students, graduates, and mental health professionals. But I want to just say a couple things because that was the same thing happened to me. I've studied so many different modalities and over so many years, and I always felt something was missing. And that's what this person said. And I think the big um, one of the big benefits of mental health is to bring everything together. You feel like that's the glue, the component that puts all the different things that I've been doing and trying to understand, and it kind of puts everything together. It kind of it molds it into a structure that totally makes sense. And that feeling of, well, there's something still missing is gone because I have such a powerful foundation. And not just that, it's that creating astonishing results. I think that is something that most health professionals really love, that it kind of gives you this master key to unlock the mysteries. So thank you for listening and watching this part 2 of our Meta Health 3-part video series. Watch out in a couple days for the next segment, part 3. And just consider if you can sense that inside of yourself, you can visualize it, that our body is actually incredibly intelligent, that you start to trust this intelligence inside of you, that there is something way beyond the body-mind connection, that there's an organ, emotion, stress trigger, belief, social lifestyle connection, very specifically, and that our body is actually going through a flow or cycles of self-healing that you can become aware of. So pay attention, become aware of these cycles in your body, and you're going to be amazed, and it will just help you tremendously in that process of self-healing. Thank you again for listening, for watching, and I'll see you very soon. And be meta healthy.